चल रही है, कुछ आवाज आ रही है, किसी ने अपना माइक वो खोला हुआ है।
We're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bootcamp. Today is the second class, and today we will be continuing with our previous session. Last time we did a static deployment of a basic HTML web page to Surge using GitHub workflow and GitHub Actions. Today we will be deploying a React application in the same way. Do you guys have anything to add before we start?
I think what we are going to do is basically, let's take a look of what needs to be done. What needs to be done is that we need to start moving towards learning React. In order to start learning React, what we'll have to do is basically, first, let's set up a minimum, a base React application, which we will build using Create React app. And let's get started. I had already built a repository for it, and I had left a bug in it. Adil, why don't you take us to that repository, show us what is required, what is the requirements, and then what we are going to do is basically correct that bug and create a base template which we are going to use again and again for our development, React development.
Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. So this is our base React app GitHub repository. And if you look in here, we have some React basic React application code. And here we have a GitHub workflows folder. And just like before, we have a YAML file to deploy the application with Surge. So let's open this. So if you look, last time we did a similar kind of thing, except it was a static application. Now what we need to do is deploy a application on that's running on React. So to do this, we have to set up our machine. So the initial part of it is all still the same. So we have our basic YAML file for the workflow. So we have the three major components. We have the name of the workflow. We have the event which causes the workflow to execute. So on this we have on push. So anytime we have a push, it will execute this workflow. And here we have a job called build that's running the Ubuntu latest machine. And here we have the steps to deploy the application to Surge. So first, again, we're checking out the code from the GitHub repository using an action, the GitHub checkout action. Then we're installing Node using the setup Node action, and we're installing Node version 12. The next thing we have to do is we have to install Yarn. And we use Yarn to build the React application and to build all the dependencies to get the application ready for the runtime environment. So here, this is the command that's being used here in this workflow to install Yarn. It's a curl statement, and this is where the issue is. So in my solution to this, what I did was I decided to use another action to install Yarn. And once Yarn is installed, we can do all of this, both of these steps in the Yarn install, and then in using the action, and then we can build the React application using the Yarn build command on the command line, and then the rest of it is straightforward, where we install Surge on our system, and then we run the deployment using the Surge command. And we're using the same token that we've built before as well. So this is the workflow that we need to configure with our basic React application.
So let's get started.
So okay, so I'll continue. So we'll go
Yes.
step by step. We'll go step by step, one thing at a time. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create a repository where we will do all of our coding. So what I'll do is in my system, I have a location where all my GitHub repositories are. So here I'll create a new folder here. I'll call this project. I'll just call this project 3. And what I'll do is I'll open this in my terminal. Now I'm in my local repository. This hasn't been added to Git yet. So this is just a folder that I've created where where I keep all of my GitHub repositories locally on my development machine. So here now what we want to do is we want to create a basic React application. And what's really nice is the React developers have provided us with this npx package we can use to create a basic React application using this create React app library, and we can use this syntax. We use npx to create a React application, and we can name it. So I've called this project 003. So what will happen is I will wait for them to create my basic React application here.
But Adil, I suspect what it will do is basically create a project 003 inside project 003.
You're right. Hold on, let me stop this and I shouldn't have made this folder actually. Let me get rid of it.
But you can maybe do something. If you can just say npx create React app and put a dot in it, dot in front of it. Therefore, it will create in it. But right now, what you have moved it to trash. Therefore, the command line is also have moved you to trash.
Yeah.
Therefore, you
So I've come back to my old place. Let me just do this again. Create React app. And now I'll do project 003. So now I'm creating a folder called project 003 in my main GitHub folder, and it will create my initial basic React application.
I think the project is still running. You will have to control C it.
I did. I restarted it.
What command did you give?
I used the npx create React app project 003.
I was just mentioning that even if you had created a directory, if you have just put a dot instead of a name, so therefore it would have created in the directory which you were in. But it's okay. You are creating a new directory.
Yeah.
Both are the right ways to do it.
Yeah. So this is still running. Almost done.
I think there is a train going near your house.
Yes, the train passes right through my area here, so I hear all the train sounds. We still have train traveling going on. So here we go. now my React application is ready.
Uh-huh. Can you open it in Visual Studio Code so that everybody can see it?
Yes. So what I'll do now is I'll open up my Visual Studio Code. And I'll open my folder. So here I'm in my GitHub repository. So here's my new folder that was just created right now. And I'll just open this folder. So here you can see my, here's all my files that have been created by the create React app.
Okay, let's include it in the GitHub repository. Initialize the GitHub repository. We will look into React later on.
Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to, should I also start the application and show it on my browser?
Of course, of course.
So here what we can do is we open this in our terminal here, and what we can do is using the npm start command, we can run our application. So if I run this, it will open up my React application on my local host.
Nothing is showing.
It's still loading.
Yeah.
Here we go. So my basic React application is up, and it's running right now on my local host on port 3000.
Perfect, perfect.
So now what we'll do is let's add this repository to our GitHub. So right now it's on my local computer. It's not in my, it's not actually added to Git just yet. So let's do that first. So I'm going to exit out of this. And so first what we'll do is we want to add this into our GitHub. So what we can do is we'll go to GitHub. Okay, so now we're on GitHub, and what we'll do is we'll create a new repository. And what we'll do is we'll give it a name. I'll call this project 3 again. And it's going to be a basic React app. I'll keep this public. Now, because we've already initialized the repository on my local machine, this won't be like a completely from scratch. We're actually just going to be adding a repository here. So what we'll do is we will not be adding a README file. We won't do any of the git ignore or license because we have all of that here in our file already in our repository. If we create them, we'll have a conflict. So it's better to not do any of this and just create the repository without anything. So we create the repository. So now we have a repository and it's empty. Now what we do is we want to add our code here into this repository. So what we'll do is we'll initialize our git in our folder here. So to do this, we'll do the git init command to add this repository into our git. So if we do git init,
actually to make a directory a Git repository.
Yeah.
This command does this.
Yeah. And then we want to add this directory into our Git staging area. So we'll do the git add, and then the dot to let it know that we're talking about the directory we're already in. So this way we have added our project 3 repository into our Git staging area, which is a staging area between our local and the endpoint, which is the origin or on the cloud. So this is now going to be tracking all of our changes as well. Now what we want to do is we want to do a commit. So after adding our files into our GitHub staging area, we want to do a git commit. So similar to how we did a commit with the on the GitHub desktop, now we'll do the git commit command. And then we'll give a message as well to let it know what we're doing. So this is our initial commit. We're actually this is going to be our first commit. And now all we have to do is push the code to the online GitHub. And to do this, first we need to know where we want to push it. So we need to get this URL. So I'll just copy this. This is my remote URL for where my repository exists on the GitHub. So now what we want to do is we want to add the remote repository where we will want to be pushing this code. So to do this, we run the git remote. We're adding a remote origin, and then we give the URL of this repository. So we've added the remote GitHub URL where we want to push our code. And then we can verify that this URL works. This is a valid repository by doing the git remote verify. So it made sure that this is a valid repository. And now all we have to do is push this to the git. So we can do git push with the origin master. We're pushing this to the master branch on the origin, which we have mentioned. So here we have pushed our code to GitHub as well. So once this completes, still running.
I'm a great believer in pair programming. When somebody is coding and I'm sitting there just enjoying myself. And I always think that I'm doing agile development.
So, okay, so it looks like it worked. We can go here and refresh my page and see that, okay, so my code has been pushed to the GitHub cloud. Right, now what we want to do is we want to add our workflow. So what we'll do is we can go to our actions and let's set up a new workflow. And we can name the name of this file that's being created. So I'll just search deployment.yml. Now we have this template that's been created for us nicely. So now we just have to kind of configure it a little bit. So here I'll just give this a name. So I'm just going to call this React app deploy to surge. Okay, so the events here, it's already being activated every time I have a new push on the master branch or a pull request on the master branch. I think I'll leave it as it is. Here now we have the jobs, and we're building a job. We have a job called build, and we're running the Ubuntu latest. That's fine. So the first step, what we do is we're going to be checking out our code, which is what we wanted. Then what we want to do is we want to complete the rest of the steps to deploy the application. So if I come back here, we can once again look at the different things we needed. Right. So what we wanted to do first, we wanted to do a checkout of the code so we can use it. Then we want to install the Node.js and we want to install Yarn. So what we've done here is used actions to install Node.js, and then we have to figure out how to install Yarn. So first, let's just do the Node.js part. So
all the
here,
people who all the people who are starting programming, please remember, cut and paste is the best. Programmers is the one who write the least number of lines. Ideal will be that we
here we're installing Node.js, right? And we're going to be using this code here. So we can.
I think we lost Sarzia.
Sorry?
I think we lost Sarzia. I guess he's not connected now.
What did we? Let me see. On StreamYard. Device not connected. He'll join back. Let's keep continuing.
Sure.
Okay, so now that we have installed Node.js here, the next thing we need to do is install Yarn. So to install Yarn, I think I heard him coming back. Here we go. I'll add him. Okay, so the next step is installing Yarn on our machine here. So first, we have installed. We have checked out, we have installed Node.js. Now we need to install Yarn. So what I did was, if we look at the different GitHub actions available, so we can GitHub actions. So if you come here, and we explore the different actions available. So here we have a big repository of all the different actions that have been made available for us, of people who have done all this work for us. So now what we have to do is we have to find a action that that is going to do our job. So we need to install Yarn. So what we'll do is I'll just search for Yarn. And here I have a bunch of different GitHub actions that are available that work with Yarn. So I went through them. I found this one that was working well. It has the option to install Yarn in here. So here they've given the instruction on how to use this GitHub action. So if you want to install Yarn, we have this one available, which will install, it will run the install Yarn command. So we can use this in our code. I'll just, and it's YAML, so the indentation is important. Here we go. So now we have installed the Yarn here. The next step we had to do is to do the Yarn build. So that's pretty straightforward, right? We just have to add the, after the installation is done, sometimes when it adds things for you on its own, it's helpful, and sometimes it's not. Here we go. So now we've built, run the Yarn build command, which will build our application. And now what's left is we have to install Surge. And that was a simple npm install global Surge.
I guess the screen is not moving. It's hanged or something.
Oh, my screen? Let's see.
Yeah, yes, no.
Is it working now?
Yes.
So all I did was I added another statement here to install Surge. So now Surge is installed, and last step left, I can get rid of all this. The last step left now is hate when it adds things for you on. Now we have to deploy to surge. And we run a command here. So what we want to run is, so before we did a deployment to surge, first we have to call surge. And what we're trying to do, if you look at the code from before, so we had three things in this. So we had the code where the code is that we want to deploy. We had the URL to where we want to deploy, and then we have the token for the secret. So here, since we did a yarn build, our actual code is in a folder called build. So we give that location. That's where the application is. Then we give a URL where we want to deploy our application, which is, I'll just make something, project 3. What was it? Search dot, what is it, SU? And then the last thing is our token. So I haven't added a token. So I haven't created a secret. So what we need to do is we need to create a secret here for this repository. So the secret we created before was for the other repository. So now we need a new secret. So here we can use the same name, but now we need a token. So I'll come back here. I can create a new search token. And this is a search token. It didn't ask me again to log in because I was already logged in. And I can add the secret now here. So there we go. And now all I have to do is here I have to give my secret. So secrets dot search token. And that's my workflow is ready to go. So what we've done is checked out, installed Node.js, installed Yarn. We've built using Yarn. Then we've installed Surge, and here we've deployed it to the URL here. So now I can commit this. So I can say created Surge deployment, Surge deployment.yml, and I'll give it a description. So I created a workflow to deploy my React application to Surge on each push. So I'll commit this file to my Git. Now I can come to my GitHub Actions tab here, and here we go. It's being run now. So it's been queued. So I can open this as well, and I can, inside of here, check out what's going on in this job. So I had this job called build, and it had all of these different steps. So you can see every step that will be executed. So let's see. So right now what it's doing is it's running that action to install Yarn. There we go. So Yarn is installed. It's building the application with Yarn build. It's installing Surge as well. So the application is built. Yarn has been installed. It's been deployed to Surge. Still going. Here we go. Everything is done. The job is completed now. So now what I can do is I can open my new tab, and I can see if I go to project 003.surge.0. This was the URL I used, right? Yeah. What's going on?
Look at the last command. What happened? What is it
Yep.
showing?
Yeah, let me see here. It's not showing the whole thing here.
Can you increase the size of
Here. Log in by entering email and password. It says it was successful though. Maybe the URL is no good.
no, otherwise it will show you the permission error.
Yeah.
Let's run it one more time, maybe.
Maybe it's still deploying.
No, it's not deploying, but if we rerun the job, the same job.
Let's try that.
I suspect project 003 is a too common a name.
It could be possible. I can try and give it another name.
The surprising thing is it's not showing an error.
Yeah.
Generally, if a domain is already taken or the name is already taken, it gives you the permission error.
Yeah, but here there is no error.
Yeah.
Surprising. Trying to run it again. Let's see.
In the meanwhile, Adil, what you do is we have to do it anyway. Give permission to Zeeshan to this repository.
Sure. So
I sent you on WhatsApp Zeeshan Hanif. The ID is Zeeshan Hanif. ZWS
Zeeshan.
Hanif.
There you go.
Yeah.
You have been invited, Zeeshan.
Okay, let me see.
Well, it deployed again. Let's try refreshing.
So the name.
It's still
name,
not working.
You change the name.
Yeah, let me try changing the name to. I'll just do it here.
What is the extension you are using for the domain? Is it SH?
Ah, it's SU. That's why.
Okay.
I messed up on the domain. So let's edit. There you go. I'm just gonna add my name here anyway. Giving it another description and commit. Now the action should run again.
I guess we lost Razi again.
He's back. Zeeshan, did you get access to the repository?
Yes.
Okay, good. So this is just running again. It'll finish in a second. Still running? Okay, it's done. So let's just make sure it's working now. I updated the URL name. Let's see. So it's this now. Now what's the problem?
Let's try to debug it. Zeeshan, why don't you take over? And Adil will also keep in the background trying to debug.
Yep. Let me switch my screen to Zeeshan.
Zeeshan, you are muted. Please unmute yourself.
I was saying, just give me a moment. I'm cloning it.
Sure.
Please, Zeeshan, share your screen so that we know what you are doing.
Just a moment.
Just in case if some girl is sending you a message, then you can, of course, not share the screen.
Yeah, I was closing that screen.
Zesav's connection is an issue today. He keeps getting disconnected.
Yes. I just lost in the middle. Just a moment.
Sure.
I shared my screen. Or we don't need it to let me check action.
You got the code, Zeeshan?
Yes, can you see my screen?
Yes.
I guess it's still the same issue.
What is important for everybody is that programming by definition is a frustrating exercise.
Yes.
Most people are not able to do programming because not because they are not intelligent, but because they don't have the patience.
Yeah, you just need to keep finding the problem.
You just have to keep at it.
Yes. There does not seems to be issue with the script. What we can do is okay. Let me do one thing.
Oh,
Let me just.
I found the issue, Zeeshan.
Okay, what was that?
In the syntax for the deploy to surge, the run command, I forgot to add that -- token.
Okay.
It's a simple thing. Here, let me edit here.
Yeah, that's it.
So here, should I get my screen back here?
Sure.
Very simple thing sometimes. Here we go. So here in the after the domain, I have to specify that I'm giving a token here. So there we go. So now we can. Now it should work. The interesting thing is when it's running the build, it's not giving an error.
That's quite surprising.
Yeah.
It's a problem with search command line.
Yes. I
It's
guess
ignoring.
search commands are just it's passing everything we enter, I guess. Makes debugging tricky. Okay, so this should run.
Now it shows full
Now it says,
output
yeah.
of the deployment, but there is another error, I guess, or not.
It says unable to download the log. There's some
Okay.
logging issue here as well. Anyway,
We don't need.
Yeah. Here we go. Now it's working. Title is here. There we go.
Oh,
Finally. There we go. So
now
that's how
Zeeshan,
you deploy a React app.
yes. Adil, Zeeshan, why don't you
Yes,
take over and revise the whole thing so that
sure.
everybody understand what we are doing?
Okay. My screen is shared. Adil, can you please?
Yes, yes. I've added it here.
Okay. So first of all, what we did is we initially created the React app with the command create npx create React app. So whenever you do, I'll be just showing the command. I'll be not executing them. For example, you are in a folder. What you are going to do is you run npx create React app hello world. What it will do is it will create React project with the predefined structure template, so that you don't need to do everything. We'll discuss the structure of the application, but you don't need to do anything, and this will create the application. Now, once we create this application, we need to push that code on GitHub repository. There is a two thing: either you create repository, clone it, and create a project inside that repository. If you have created the folder initially on your system, so what you need to do is you need to connect your repository directly to your repository. So first, what we did is, after going creating the project, Adil initiated the command git init. So what it does is it create your simple directory, it converts it into Git directory, and then you can run on Git add. So everything committed to everything added to the Git staging, and then Git commit any changes, any name. Once it is done, what you need to do is you need to connect your Git repository to your local directory. For that, let's say we had this uh, directory. Initially it was empty, so what we do is we copy this, we do git remote add any name you want. Generally we use origin and the URL of the repository. What it does is you can verify, because currently this repository is already connected to the git. So what we can do is git remote -v. It shows whenever you fetch, from where it will be fetching the data. Whenever you push, at what URL this command will be pushing. So whenever you do git push,
Just a second, Adil. Could you please
Yes.
mute your mic? There's some background noise coming. Yes, Zeeshan, go ahead.
git push origin master. So what it will do is it will connect your report. It will push all your changes to GitHub. So one by one, you created a directory, you created a React project, and now you want to push all your changes to the Git repository. You created a Git repository. You need to connect your repository with the command git remote add origin and the URL which you want to connect your directory with. In this case, I'll not executing this command because we are already connected to this. The name origin is by default. For the default repository, you do the name origin, but you can have any name. Hello, Zeeshan, any name you want to do. Let's say I'm doing this. Now, if I'll see git remote -v, so my git is connected with the two repository, two different names. For now, both are the same. What I can do is git push Zeeshan master. So this Zeeshan is nothing. It's just mentioning the repository you want to push your code. So once we done this, we push all our changes into the repository. Then we move to the actions. What we did was, let me go to the code. So initially we created a simple React app, we push into the GitHub, and now what we are going to do is we're going to create GitHub action. So this React app built automatically and deployed to the search directly without any manual interaction. We just need to push the code. So what this code says to us, I just zoomed it. Initially the name, whatever you name you want to for this action, on push and on pull request. For now we don't need for the pull request, but it is here. On the push, whenever we push our code to the master branch, this GitHub action will be executing. Job built runs on. What we are saying, as we have discussed in last class, that it will run on Ubuntu container, and all the commands we are mentioning in this GitHub action are going to be executed on that Ubuntu container virtual machine. Steps, and first step would be, because it's new container, it's empty OS, it's just an Ubuntu operating system. It does not have your code, the code which you want to build and run. So what you need to do is you need to use command action /checkout. What it will do is it will check out, it will clone your repository on this Ubuntu container. Then we need to install Node.js. Again, it's a fresh Ubuntu machine, so we need Node.js over here. When you are working on your machine, you will be having Node.js. Once you install Node.js, you don't need to do this step again and again. But for GitHub action, every time this action runs, it creates a new container. It has a fresh Ubuntu latest Ubuntu OS. So you need to do all the steps again and again. So we automate all these steps in this way. Install Node.js action. It will install Node.js version 12. Then what we need to do is we need to run yarn install. There were some questions in the stream. Yarn and npm are the same. Yarn is much better package manager for the Node.js. It was introduced after the npm, and it has some better features. And with the React, recently more and more people are working with the yarn instead of npm. So our React app, more of the modules we are going to use in future, the better compatibility and better features are available with the yarn. So what we need to do is we need to like we have run in our, yes, as you can see, npm install global search. It's npm package manager installing search on your machine. Yarn is exactly the same. What we do is we call yarn add and package name. So for that, yarn requires some additional queries with the curl command. So to streamline that, we have already have a yarn action. It hides all the curl commands, and you don't need to do anything. So it will, what we do is we'll use yarn action, and with that, it's in an input. Every action, let's say we'll be going to build actions in future. So whenever you want to pass input to the action, you use with cmd. So this yarn action requires input. So we pass cmd. So we say install. That means run install command. Whenever we do, let me show. Whenever we call npm install, what it does is whatever dependencies mentioned in package.json file are going to install in your machine. Same you can do yarn install. So we need to run this yarn install command on our server on GitHub action. So when we do install, it runs yarn install command as it is mentioned here. Once it's done, all the dependencies are available. Why we need a dependency? Let me just show you the package.json file. Will go into detailing later, but just showing you, this is the initial package.json file. Whenever you create a React app, you will get this. These are the dependencies that need to be part of your project so that your project builds and run perfectly. That's why we need to run yarn install. So I just run yarn install. Then we need to run build. What build do is build package the all components, create the JS and HTML files, and minify them, and give you the build project production build. So you run yarn builds, it creates a build, then you run. It can be done with yarn also. At this moment we are doing npm install global search, but you can do is yarn add minus global search. It will work with that also, because yarn and npm both are package managers. Then what we are doing is deploy search command, and we are mentioning the folder which has the deployment code. So the /build has the deployment code. Then we are mentioning the URL, the domain on which we need to bind. Then the token, because we are using on GitHub Action, we are not doing on our machine, so there is no search login, so we need token over there. So once it is done, as you see, it starts running the command. What I'll do is just me go back to the URL, and so at this moment it just shows the simple message. What I'll do is I'll make some changes and push the code, because we already have the GitHub Action, so we don't need to make lot of effort to deploy it. I'll just so it is done. What I'll do is comment. Can't override. Okay, we have changes over there. Don't worry about this screen. I just mistakenly used the smart git. All these steps can be done with the GitHub desktop, which we have already done, so you don't need to worry about this. It just push the code, and what we are going to see, this started the build. Again, let me reiterate this. All these commands which we need to do it manually, we need to run it manually for the deployment, for the push of your code. All these done by the GitHub Action, so that you don't need to do every time. You just push the code, and all these commands should run automatically. Like I just push the code, and it's running the build, it's installing everything, and it will deploy the application. Okay, so it is published now. Let me refresh it. Updated by Zeeshan.
Perfect. Now what we are going to do is, now everybody understands we have now deployed Zeeshan and Adil have deployed a React app. Now let's start going into, for the next few classes, we will be learning React. We will be learning React from the website. The website was down. Is it back up, Adil?
No, I don't think so.
Can you go ahead and check with the website is not because they are protesting.
Zeeshan, that backup, was it made by you or somebody else? You had another domain, right?
I guess it's done by Sazia.
Okay.
It was made by a student. I just said that.
Okay.
Okay. So that one is still working.
Yes, that is.
This one is still working.
Yes.
So this can be used.
Yes, right now they are protesting. Therefore, they have taken down their website. But it was they are protesting for the right cause. Therefore, I think we should basically bear with it. And we are going to use the website created by one of our students, a backup website. Zeeshan, let's get started. And going into React, we have about 15 minutes. And what we are going to do is, now the first question is, why do we need React in the first place? Why do you think we need it?
Sorry, first question?
My first question, if we want to make web applications, we have HTML, we have CSS, we have JavaScript. Using JavaScript, we can make dynamic applications, which if you want static applications, we can use HTML and CSS. For dynamic applications, we can use JavaScript, which will basically get data from the server and update the DOM, which is basically data object model of the user interface. And basically, we don't need React. So why is React so popular and a lot of people? Why are so many people using it? And
you lost voice, I guess. Hello.
Hello. Go ahead. We can hear.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Okay. So the first thing is what we need to understand is when we can do everything with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, why we need a React. Basically, whenever you are working with the pure and core level of lab application fundamentals and things, you always need to do a lot of work. Let me go back in the past when in 90s and initial 2000, what we were doing is there were websites in early age of internet. We had the websites, we have the HTML and JS pages, but what the problem was, they were static pages, and whenever we want to do some action, what it do is it send the request to the server, and each time we receive a new page. That was the initial days of the internet, and that was we were handling with. So what it was doing is it has the two problems. First, it's because every time we receive a full HTML page, and every time it costs the bandwidth, and secondly we have to wait because every time we click on something, your page got blank, it's white, and you have to wait for the result to come up. Let's say if you are using an email application, you click on email, your page went blank, it will come up in a few moments. So after that, it was so in 95 or late 90s, Microsoft introduced Ajax, asynchronous JavaScript. Because of that, what happened is you can send the request to the server in the background. Ajax did improve a lot. Because of Ajax, it increased a lot of efficiency in web application. So what you need to do is you don't need to send whole page to the server, you full server page from the server. You just send a request in the background and receive only required data. What it does is it increase the client side of the application, because before that everything was on the server. Now all the HTML, CSS on the client. It just and whenever you go for website, everything comes to your browser in the first go, and you just call the Ajax for simple data. Now everything is on the client, everything is in the application, so it creates the problem. Spike code become cluttered, it becomes spaghetti. So what you need to do is there were many frameworks that try to solve the problem to create the efficient applications, and that raised the Ajax and the rich application raised the concept of single page application. Single page application is your page just stays there. You don't need to send request, and it does not refresh. Everything you need to do is just update your page. It does not change anything. Okay, it does not refresh the page, but it updates page automatically. Like we have a Facebook. In Facebook, whenever you saw your friend list, you click on your friend list, it just pop up the chat box. It does not refresh anything. It just create the div on the fly, and you can see this. So in such cases, application become too much complex, and if you have everything in a single HTML and JS file, it will be too much complex to manage and handle. You can do it your own, you can do it manually, so you can separate the HTML pages and then manually do it. It will definitely, you have to manage all the life cycle and event. So to solve these problems, there are frameworks: Angular, Vue, Backbone. There are many, but recently in the, I guess in 2003 or 2004, Facebook introduced the React.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
just forgetting the year exactly, but
it was 2013.
it was 2013. I just ignored the one. Okay, so in 2013, Facebook introduced the React. Before that, we were using Angular. Angular was doing the same, but Angular had some problems. So now we have a React. What it solves? 2-3 things. First, you can create rich application with the React, and your application will be a single page application. It will not refresh the page every time. First, all you need to do is your request will go to the server in the background. Third, because you have a complex page, Facebook has a complex page. It has a friend list, it has an activity, groups. There are a lot of things in the Facebook. If it is in a single HTML page, that means it will be a too much complex, and having a single page with all these features will create development hurdle also, because there are might be thousands of developers working on the same page, but they are working on a separate entities. Someone working on the friend list, someone working on the stream, someone working on the groups, someone working on whatnot. There are a lot of things in the single page. So with the React and these rich client application framework and libraries, what we can do is we can create a small component instead of creating a big HTML page. What we do is we create a small component. So we have a small JS or HTML file which has only chat, another component which has only group list, another component which shows only stream, another component which only shows header, another component which only shows setting, another component. So we have a lot of small component, each have its own required feature and required component which is doing its own work. Then what we need to do is we need to combine all those separate components into a single page. So React helps you create separate components, and then you can combine them and show on your application. That's the I guess there are a lot of to cover it, but the basic on the base of it, that's what it is.
Okay, Zeeshan, very good explanation. But I'm still confused. When you talk about component, what does it mean? What does a component mean?
A component mean a tag at the layest technical level. When you create an HTML page, you have a div, you have a button, you have select box, everything. What you need to do is you need to combine 2 or 3 HTML element and show it separately or manage it separately. So what you need to do is like you have a div element, it's a tag. So what you can do is you can create your own custom tag, and that custom tag represent and separate part of HTML, and you can add over multiple HTML elements in that. So component is in a custom tag which we include in our HTML in our page, and it shows whatever HTML element we have used in that component.
So basically what you are saying is a component is nothing but a simple custom tag which you can create yourself. Most of the tags are provided by the browser. For example, HTML tag by itself is a browser tag, div is a browser tag, span is a browser tag. But what you can do is create your own custom. For example, I can create a customer profile tag. And once we have a customer profile tag, you can use that tag anywhere. And it's, of course, underneath it, it will contain HTML tags. But for the user, I don't have to define the profile. Somebody gives me a component, I'll just use the profile tag and it will reuse all the code. It makes our job much easier. Am I right?
Yes.
Now, then is another question. Once when we used to, you remember, Zeeshan, we started off in Angular together.
Yes.
And they used to tell us that it is two-way data binding.
Yes.
When React came along, it proposed that the data should flow in a single direction. What does it mean? And they say that it is a very powerful concept.
Basically, when Angular came, and the real power of Angular, there are a lot of other things, but Angular was betting on two-way data binding. What two-way data binding is? Whenever you change anything in HTML, it updates your JavaScript. Anything you update in JavaScript, it updates your HTML page. So it was two-way data binding. It's just do it instantly, instead of you need to before Angular, what we need to do is we need to fetch the data, we need to build the data, and we need to update the UI ourselves. Angular was doing it itself, and Angular named it two-way data binding. But the problem was it creates a lot of trouble with the management of data, because data was going around two-way. So there was no single direction of data. So if you have a 4 component, all of them updating some JavaScript and JavaScript updating those components, so it creates a confusion. That's why what React did is, what React says, it will be a one-way direction. Data flow will be one-way direction. It will be coming from the JavaScript to the UI. And whenever the power was too much for the two-way data binding, so whenever you need to update or do something, you hit the any action, you click on something, and then it will update JavaScript, and JavaScript then update the UI. So instead of going two-way direction, the flows run in a cycle. So update the JavaScript update the UI, and UI did something, UI make an action, it will update, it will go call to the JavaScript then update the UI. So that's what because of that, data flow is in a single direction, so you can manage data more easily than in case of the Angular.
So basically what you are saying,
Angular accepted that, and Angular is also going doing in one-way data binding.
What you are saying is basically two-way data binding. What you are saying conceptually, what you are saying about that JavaScript, it means the model, because what you have is JavaScript objects which represent data, which is called a model, and the view. Therefore, what was happening is in first Angular 1.0, there were two-way data binding. The model used to update the view, and the view used to update the model. But in React, they propose a new kind of model to make it simple. It is less powerful, but it is simple. That always, if you want to change something, you have to change the model, it will change the view. And in this way, it simplifies everything. and makes complicated things simple. Am I right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Now what we are going to do is, in the next class, which will be held on Saturday at 10 p.m. Pakistan time, what we are going to start doing is, basically we start with Hello World. Zeeshan, can you show everybody the tutorial we are going to follow? This is a very nice guy. He has made a tutorial which contains the latest updates to React, because the books are a little bit behind. The things change so fast in the React world that if you follow the books, you are 2-3 years behind. So therefore, could you screen so everybody can?
Yeah, this is the tutorial. The main domain is not working, so one of our student did help us. React minus guide. What I'll do is, this is the URL, react minus guide dash backup.search.sh. This is one of our because original website is down, and this is the tutorial for the React. So we'll be following this tutorial.
Could you also
And
show the original URL just in case, because we are using his copyright material?
okay, so let me. Here is the original URL. daveceddia.com. It's already available on the repository you have shared, React tutorial. So that this is the original URL.
Okay. Now we did very well today. We are going to start, just so that everyone understands what we are doing. First, we are going to complete React. What we want to do is create developers who are able to develop end-to-end applications. And later on, for their other courses, they will learn to integrate artificial intelligence or blockchain or other technologies, but to develop end-to-end applications. Therefore, the first thing we are going to do is, we are going to basically learn React in a tutorial. We are going to follow this tutorial. And then later on, after we have completed that, we are going to build a project. In that project, we are going to basically use the COVID-19 APIs to get the data and from the APIs and show it on the screen. For that, we will use material UI components, React components, and also chart.js to show charts. Also, to get the data, we are going to use React Suspense, latest technology, and so on. And basically, the point is that we are going to develop, and after that, we will start developing e-commerce applications. We want very comprehensive and mature developers who are able to go to the international market and basically make themselves valuable to the companies they are working for. And in this COVID-19 environment, post-COVID-19 environment, in the most probably in the next year, this is going to be very problematic financially for everyone. We want everybody, and we want to play a part in making people successful and self-reliant all over the world. That is the whole objective of our program. None of us are getting any money out of this thing. Basically, all of us are doing it pro bono, and the whole idea is to basically bring a revolution of people using technology to solve their day-to-day problems. Let's meet on next Saturday at 10 p.m. and we will start with Hello World. You can, of course, go ahead and start following the tutorial yourself. And basically, in the next few classes, we are going to complete this React tutorial. See all of you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.